This has been a long vlog, but it's because I wanted to explain to y'all how my feeding tube works. I hope it was a good educational resource. Yeah.
Oh, you got freezing cold here.
Good Monday morning, everyone. It is a rainy day here in Florida. And as promised, this video is going to be dedicated to explaining to y'all all about my feeding tube, how it's helped me, how it works, how I take care of it, and especially since tomorrow marks my 2-month anniversary with my feeding tube, and tomorrow I go to the hospital to switch this tube out for a GJ button, which I am really excited about. This tube has been an incredible addition to my treatment, but I've said it before, feeding tubes are not glamorous, and so if you don't want to see slight discharge from my feeding tube site, or you don't want to see some things coming out of my feeding tube, then this may not be the video for you, which is okay. I know that stuff makes some people uneasy, so I thought I'd just give y'all fair warning, because I am going to show y'all everything today, because I think this video will be a good way to spread awareness for feeding tubes and gastroparesis and other GI disorders. I think it'll be a good way to educate some people, because I know some of y'all are just curious to learn more about my feeding tube, and I think it'll be a good resource for people who may be getting their own feeding tube so they can see kind of like what they're in store for. So I have already gotten ready for the day. I've changed, brushed my teeth, washed my face, brushed my hair. I've done my nebulizer treatment. I've sorted my pills for the day. So now I'm gonna get started with my routine for my feeding tube. This is my pump. It's an infinity pump. It runs on a charge, and a full charge can make it go a few days, but I just charge it every night to make sure it stays fully functional. And I'm gonna turn it off, because now I'm going to flush my feeding tube, so I need to disconnect, and I don't want the nutrition running out while it's disconnected. This is what I use to draw up water to flush my tube. Just fill this up, draw back the water in the plunger, disconnect, hang this end over the sink, connect the plunger, and this is a side valve. I open this first and squirt, because some stuff always comes out of there. Like gunk builds up in the side valve, I guess. Take care of that side, and then I do the other side. Then I get more water and flush the center port. That's the one where my nutrition runs through. Yes, I can feel the water going in. I don't feel my nutrition running, but the water is colder and it goes in faster, so I can feel that. And ta-da, we just flushed my feeding tube for the morning. This is why we flush it. This is kind of like clogged up, dried up formula that kind of just clumps together. And if you don't flush it and take care of that, then it can actually clog your feeding tube. And clogs are just bad for lots of reasons. One, you can't run your nutrition through, and I'm obviously very reliant on my feeding tube to be functional. And my doctor told me that if a clog stays there long enough, it can foster growth of bacteria and lots of nasty stuff. And I couldn't unclog it. I tried all the tricks to break up the clog, couldn't do it. So I had to go to the emergency room, and the doctor used a specialized plunger to force enough pressure to break up the clog. And so now I have those plungers, and it's actually what I use now. The smaller the plunger, the more pressure you can apply. So I enjoy using those 35 milliliter plungers the best. And the thing about this feeding tube, it's called a dangler because it dangles. And this specific one I have, my doctor said it's very prone to clogging. So even though I follow my protocol very, very strictly, I flush it how I'm supposed to and everything, it can still get clogged anyways. Thankfully, I've only had that one instance in the 2 months I've had it. Now I'm gonna put more nutrition in the feed bag. This is what I call the bags, feed bags. I just shake the can, pop it open, and I pour it in. And then I try to get as much air out as possible. Ta-da! After flushing and refilling the bag, I just turn on the pump again. It's gonna run through these settings. And that is my rate. I adjust it with these buttons. So it's at 25 milliliters an hour, and then I just hit run. I told y'all it sounds like a little video game or a Yoshi, like from Mario, that sound. We then come into the hospital room. Literally, like, all my infusion, port care, medical supplies, feeding tube supplies is in these two organizers here. Over here to the trash can, and I love this trash can because it has something specifically for cans, which is perfect for me and my feeding tube stuff. Then I come hang my feeding tube backpack on the feeding tube pole so I can reel in any excess tubing, because as you can see, there's a lot of tubing here and I don't want that dragging around or getting caught on anything. So I just roll it up in my hands. So I've just rolled it up like this, and then on the inside of my backpack, I have something to clip it in place. Right here. I love it. So this backpack's been altered by a seamstress to accommodate my feeds. It also has a clip at the top to hold my feeding tube bag, and this hole at the bottom to let the tubing run out and connect directly to my feeding tube. It's pretty awesome. This is a vibration hydration backpack, and I just had a seamstress alter it. Then I just start my careful trek downstairs. Gotta make it from my upstairs walker to my downstairs walker. And of course I got my helpful hippo here. She's gonna cheer me on the whole way. Yep, that's a rainy day. Soggy doggy has to go potty outside though. So I have a feeding tube due to my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, median arcuate ligament syndrome, and gastroparesis. You can learn more about all of those in my chronic illness video, but basically my stomach does not work like it should because it's partially paralyzed, and I have malabsorption throughout my entire digestive tract. I can still eat even though I have a feeding tube. Just because you have a feeding tube doesn't mean you can't eat orally, although some people with a feeding tube don't eat orally. In my case, my feeding tube supplements me. So right now I eat about 5 to 10% of what I need in a day, and the feeding tube makes up the other 90 to 95%. And even at my best, before my GI issues had gotten really bad, I was only eating about 40 to 60% of what I needed. So as of right now, the feeding tube is a permanent solution to a permanent problem. Most of what I eat doesn't get digested anyways. My stomach either rejects it and I vomit it up, or it comes out the drainage port of my feeding tube. But I still try to eat orally because if I stop altogether, I could lose what little function my stomach has left. So obviously I'm very dependent on my nutrition, and that nutrition, the formula I receive, gives me a very complete, wholesome, nutritious diet. What I have is a J tube, more specifically a trans J. So it enters my stomach and transfers to my jejunum, which is part of my small intestine. That's where my nutrition goes into. So it completely skips my stomach, the most problematic part of my digestive tract. My formula is also very broken down to help with the malabsorption, and I have a very slow feed rate to allow my intestines time to absorb what it needs. My goal rate is 35 milliliters an hour, and you saw on the pump it was at 25, and that's because lately I've been having issues tolerating my feeds. That can happen from time to time. Maybe this formula doesn't agree with me anymore, or maybe my GI symptoms are flaring, and the signs that I'm not tolerating my feeds includes excess diarrhea, nausea and vomiting, more cramping, bloating, and this is just something I need to talk to my doctor about so we can figure out what to do. And I'm hooked up to my feeds 24/7. Our goal was to get me to either nocturnal feeds, where I only do the feeds at night, or daytime feeds where I only feed during the day. And personally, I hate being hooked up at night because I move a lot and then I get kinks in the line and the pump goes off in alarms and it's just really annoying. So I would love to only have feeds running during the day, but that means my rate would have to get up to like 60 to 70 milliliters an hour, and I can barely tolerate 35. But my doctor said it could take several months for my body to really become accustomed to the tube feeds. So I'm not too concerned right now. We just got to give it more time. But at the same time, the slow rate helps with my malabsorption. And if I have to be hooked up 24/7 because I can't tolerate higher than 35, so be it, because honestly, the tube feeds have really improved my life. Like I said, it saved my life. I was in such a dangerous state of chronic malnourishment. I had no energy to do anything. I couldn't take a few steps without blacking out because of how malnourished my body was. And now there's no stress. If I feel like I can take a few bites, so be it. If I can't eat that day, it's fine because I have my nutrition going. And It's just been a great addition to my treatment. I'm so thankful for my feeding tube. Now it's been a few hours, so I'm gonna flush my feeding tube again. And I said that this tube does do drainage from my stomach. This is a port that goes to my stomach and it can drain contents from my stomach, but this tube isn't specifically made for that and it doesn't do it very well. I have to have a ton of pressure buildup and be in a lot of pain for it to do that. And like I said, it doesn't do it very well. Now the tube I'm getting tomorrow is a Mickey GJ button. It's very low profile, close to the body, much more convenient, and it does vent and drain. It's made for that. It has a J port to my jejunum for nutrition and a G port to my stomach that will allow me to vent and drain contents from my stomach that's just not being digested, to help alleviate pain and nausea and vomiting and bloating. And it's made for that. Unlike this tube where I have to wait for just a ridiculous amount of pressure buildup for it to even do it a little bit, and it doesn't do it well. The GJ button I'm getting tomorrow is made for it, and it's gonna be a big help in managing my symptoms. Oh, she's been pulling on that for a few minutes now, and she just opened her own toy bin. I was gonna get it for you, Har, but I guess you're good. Well, Harlow's gonna play with her toys. I'm gonna get some cleaning done around the house. I have some laundry to put away, and because of my immunodeficiency and allergens, I keep our home very clean, and since I'm going to get my feeding tube changed, I might be a little sore for a few days and not able to keep up with household chores. I don't know if I'll be sore or not. I've never had my feeding tube replaced, so in case I am and I'm unable to keep up with the cleaning, I want to make sure everything's spick and span before I go in for the procedure. So that's what I'm gonna do now. So I dusted upstairs and cleaned the upstairs bathroom, and you know, when you're in a body that's constantly working against you, simple things can really be not so simple. Chores takes me a lot of effort and a lot of time. But instead of focusing on the fact that something simple is actually ridiculously hard for me, I'm gonna focus on the fact that I got it done. So I'm gonna be proud and happy with that accomplishment. I'm also gonna run an infusion today. I mixed myself a banana bag. Mondays aren't usually infusion days for me, but the hospital called and recommended that I get really hydrated for my procedure tomorrow. And since my GI issues make it hard for me to do oral intake both for foods and fluids, I'm gonna run an infusion. And that's the really nice thing about running my own infusions. I can decide when I do them and how much and how often, so I can alter my schedule to accommodate for my procedure tomorrow. So I'm gonna hook up to my banana bag, and then I'm gonna slowly tackle the laundry.
Smells good in the kitchen.
Oh, I'm cooking dinner. I kind of just crashed after I did my chores, but I'm alive now, and I'm gonna cook us a nice dinner.
Looks like some fried chicken, my favorite. Oh, by the way, in case you haven't noticed, I'm home from work.
Dinner is served. I do not feel like I can eat much right now, but this is one of our favorite recipes. It's actually passed down from my dad, and it's very tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Look who's here! My mom made it.
Yeah,
She's
I made it.
Here.
It was horrible, the traffic getting out of Orlando as always.
But she's here because she's taking me to my procedure tomorrow because
Yeah.
Jed has to work. Thanks, Mom. I'm glad you're
I have
here.
to be there for her, my little baby, my baby boo.
It's time for bed, so we're starting the bedtime routine for my feeding tube. Gotta get 2 cans of nutrition. I open my feeding tube drawer, get a new feed bag. I get a new gauze. This gauze with a slit in it, and a saline flush. Nighttime is when I clean my feeding tube. I used to do it morning and night, but I found that cleaning it so often would add to irritation. So now I just do it once a day before bed. So I carefully undo the tape here, and I take the gauze out. Now, as you can see on the gauze, there's discharge and there's a little bit of blood. The blood is from my granulation tissue, which is just raw irritated skin near the stoma, which is the opening, and that's very common with feeding tubes. It's just due to friction and irritation, And using a barrier, which I use with the gauze, has really helped. Now there is something called tubie pads, which are these pads specifically made for feeding tube barrier protection. I got mine on Etsy and I love them, but these tubie pads are too thick to use with this specific tube. The gauze is thinner and more comfortable. I'm hoping I can use the tubie pads with the new tube I'm getting tomorrow, but the gauze works well for now and it's helped a lot with decreasing my granulation tissue. And so now I'm gonna open a new pack of gauze. It comes with 2, so I set one aside. I then open my saline and I wet the corners. And I just slide it around and underneath my tube to clean it. Very gently. Then I take a dry corner and dry it, because the most important part about the feeding tube is keeping it clean and dry. Once it's been dried, I put the new gauze underneath.
I think I've got everything out here. It'll be good.
Ta-da! And then I'll just tape it here. So I flushed my feeding tube after I did the gauze, just like I did this morning, and now Jed's gonna set up the new feed bag. So the feed bags need to be changed every 24 hours, and we do it before bed. I used to do it in the mornings, but I found that if I had somewhere to be really early, like tomorrow we have to leave early, it's kind of a hassle to do it in the morning, so doing it before bed's a lot easier. And we put 2 cans of nutrition. I have infinity bags, they're 500 milliliters. I like this better than the bigger bags. People ask us how this tastes. We've never tasted it.
Smells like vitamins.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it wouldn't taste that good. Judd's getting all the air out and closes it. And that top part kind of just, with his hands in the way, it stretches over this black part and clips in. Shut it. Turn it on, and then there is a prime key on here because there's all this air in the tubing, and so we need the air out, so he's just going to hold down the prime key and it sucks the nutrition through. So we're going to run the nutrition all the way through the tubing so it goes all the way to the end. So you can see the nutrition has been fed all the way through. At night we charge up the pump by just plugging it in like that. And we put everything back in the backpack and hang the backpack on the IV pole. And when I hook up at night, I don't coil up the tubing. I give myself as much allowance as possible because, like I said, I move around a lot at night and it still kinks up and the alarm goes off. But I can't hook up tonight because I'm getting anesthesia tomorrow. So I can't have any food or water after midnight, so no nutrition. But it'll be nice to have a little freedom, no kinks and no pump alarm going off. And but I needed to get it ready because I have to take it with me tomorrow to make sure my new feeding tube works and functions properly, and I needed it ready since we're leaving really early. Well, we are ready for bed, going to sleep early. I gotta wake up early for my procedure tomorrow, and I'm not really nervous. A little nervous for the anesthesia because I don't usually do well with it, but I'm just...
You'll be fine.
I know. I'm excited because this new feeding tube is going to be an even better tool than the one I have now. And the one I have now...
model.
Yeah. And the one I have now is already a good addition to my treatment, so it's going to be great. And
just all around great.
I'm excited to get it. So this has been a long vlog, but it's because I wanted to explain to y'all how my feeding tube works. I hope it was a good educational resource. Yeah. And with that, I'll say goodnight, and thanks for joining us on our adventure.